What is the most lethal predator to birds in North America? If you ask an environmentalist, they might say deforestation or wind turbines. They might say feral cats, but they are wrong. The most lethal predator to birds on Earth is an artist with a blueprint, otherwise known as an architect. Every single year in the United States alone, more than 1 billion birds die from colliding with glass buildings. Over 1 billion with a B. We are committing mass continental slaughter of wildlife. And we're not doing it for food. We're not doing it for survival. We're doing it because an artist decided that concrete looks heavy and glass looks light. We are wiping out entire avian populations to satisfy the aesthetic vanity of the modern artist. Now, you might be thinking, hold up, 1 billion? That doesn't sound right. If that were true, you would see mountains of feathers outside buildings in New York and Chicago. I don't see anything like that. I've seen a bird hit my window, but it was a little stunned. And then it got up, it shakes it off, and it flies away. That right there is the illusion that the architect relies on. We hear the loud thud, we go outside and we look at the bird, and the bird is stunned. But then it shakes its head, flaps its wings, and flies off. And we feel okay. We go back inside, we smile, and we're thinking, oh, good. The bird's fine. I guess it was just a little stunned. The reality of that situation is totally different and horrifying. Ornithologists and people involved in wildlife conservation have studied these window strikes. The bird is not fine. When a bird hits a solid plane of glass at 30 miles per hour, speed at which it's flying, its skull fractures, its internal organs rupture, and its brain starts to swell. When you see it shake it off and fly away, it's running on pure adrenaline. It flies to the nearest bush, hides in the branches, and over the next 48 hours, it will slowly die. It slowly bleeds to death internally. The bird is dead the moment it hits the glass. It just hasn't stopped flying yet. But because it flies out of sight to die, the sidewalk stays clean. The death is invisible. And the architect gets to pretend that his building, his little creative vision, isn't a slaughterhouse. So why does this happen? Do you know what a bird sees when it looks at a glass skyscraper reflecting the sky? It sees the sky. McCormick Place is one of the greatest buildings in North America. It's a giant, modernist glass rectangle on the Lake Michigan shore, and it's the largest convention center in North America. David Willard, a retired curator of birds at Chicago's Field Museum, has walked out every morning for more than 4 decades. More than 40 years, he walks out every morning to collect the dead birds outside McCormick Place. On a good day, you might find a dozen. On a bad day, about 100. On one particular evening, this is just a couple years ago, he walked out, and I guess it was because of a perfect combination due to weather and the birds' migration patterns. Clouds of birds came down, and he found just one morning 966 dead birds. One building, one single morning. The artist sacrifices the living on the altar of expression. If a factory dumped a chemical that killed 1 billion birds every single year, we would shut the factory down. There would be protests. Protesters would want the CEO to step down, and probably even more. They'd want the CEO to be arrested. But when it's an architect who designs a glass monument that does the exact same thing, we give them design awards, and we call the style modernism. Look at Flaco. Remember Flaco? He was a, if you don't know, he was a Eurasian owl at Central Park Zoo. About 2 or 3 years ago, he escaped his enclosure because someone cut the protective netting and he flew off. And initially they were worried about Flaco because they didn't know if he could, would he survive? Like he's a zoo animal. Now he's out in the open. What's going to happen? Come to find out, Flaco was living a great life. They found him catching rats and he was able to eat and he was doing well. And he decided to adopt Central Park as his, that's his like home. He'd be seen in the Central Park area. And this attracted a lot of attention, by the way. This story was getting a lot of attention. They'd keep updating, what Flaco was up to. And a lot of tourists at Central Park would gather around for sightings and to see him. Everything was fine. But you know where this is going. About a year, actually not even about, exactly 1 year after his escape in February 2023, in February 2024, Flaco, unfortunately, died. What do you think happened? Take a guess. Flaco died because he flew into a glass building. And because he was a well-known bird, like a celebrity bird, you might say, they renamed a bill that was, meant to, like it's like asking for bird-friendly design. They renamed the bill in his honor. They named it Flaco Act. That's great and everything. But what are we really gonna do about it? It's like putting a band-aid on the pavement, on a crack on the pavement. And McCormick Place, by the way, how they deal with this is, I've heard they're putting dots on the glass now. So, the tool, the creative expression must always stay. We don't address the root cause. The disease of creating art, the artistic mindset, we don't address that mental illness. We would rather just, oh, you don't like the glass? Okay, I'll put some dots on the glass. The birds would be able to see the dots and they won't think it's glass. Okay? Happy? Problem solved. I will name it Flaco Act. The architect knows exactly what they're doing. They know the glass is lethal, but to the artist, the dead bird is just clutter that gets in the way of their vision. I wrote a book that exposes the people who are building our culture and our cities and the media we consume. It's called The Artist is the Enemy: Why We Let the Most Broken People on Earth Command Our Lives. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Stop worshiping the people who built your cage. See art for what it really is: the most contagious mental illness in human history. Glass is a disaster to live in. It leaks heat in the winter. It traps heat in the summer. It doesn't matter how great your the structure is, the house or the apartment or whatever. It doesn't matter how new it is, how cutting edge the technology is. This is the law. Every glass skyscraper you see is running a carbon burning engine in its basement 24 hours a day. And the only reason is to undo the thermal damage in its own walls. And the architect knows this. The engineering reports are not hidden. The energy modeling is actually done before the first beam is ever placed. They choose the glass anyway, because the building is not for you. The building is not for the people who are living inside it, who will freeze in the winter and boil in the summer. The building is not for the people who are working inside it, the builders who are sweating in the summer sun through floor-to-ceiling windows with no shade. The building is not for the birds who are navigating a migration corridor that now has a big, beautiful wall of reflected sky. The building is not for the planet either, absorbing the carbon output of its own cooling system. No, the building is for the photograph. Specifically, it's for the photograph taken from across the street on a clear morning when the glass reflects the clouds and the whole structure looks beautiful and seems to dissolve into the sky. That photograph will appear in architectural journals. It'll be submitted for design awards. It's a centerpiece of the artist's, the architect's, monograph and portfolio. The billion dead birds will not show up on the portfolio, though.